Hello, I'm Bill Anderson. I'm the Executive Director for MeckEd, formerly known as Mecklenburg Citizens for Public Education. And I'm here today to talk to you about understanding the CMS budget for 2011 and 2012. But before we start talking about the budget, I think it's important to talk a little bit about MeckEd, a little bit about myself, and why MeckEd is helping lead this program to help you better understand what's going on with the budget and CMS right now. MeckEd is a nonprofit organization here in our community, and we basically are an advocate for public education. MeckEd is about engaging the community in different initiatives, and right now the initiative is around the budget. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create opportunities in the community for our people to work together so we can do what's best for our schools and for our students. Let me tell you a little bit about me. I worked in CMS for over 30 years. I was a teacher, I was an assistant principal, I was a principal, and ended my career as an assistant superintendent. And now I work with MeckEd. And as an advocate for public education, I feel that we're in a pretty good position to help CMS and really to help you as we get through these difficult times. Let's talk a little bit about MeckEd's role in the budget process. Unfortunately, these budget cuts are really unprecedented, and they're 3 years in the making, and they're very painful. But CMS has recommended some cuts to have as little pain as possible on some of the gains that we've had throughout in the past few years. Our role is to provide reliable information about the budget, to help leaders share facts about the new budget, and to encourage continued discussion and engagement throughout the community. We're convinced that an informed dialogue is essential, and we're also convinced, well, basically it's in everybody's best interest that we have a really strong public school system. CMS needs an informed community. We need discussion and we need understanding. At the end of the day, MeckEd is reaching out for your help. We need you in this process. There's some really good news that comes out of CMS that we fail to talk about these days because there seems to be so much negative talk around the budget cuts and all the tough things that are happening. But let's not forget that last year, 94% of our schools either met or exceeded state standards. Math proficiency in grades 3 through 8 and end of grade tests also grew to 75%. It had been 64% in 2006. And our high school end of course tests, that's a proficiency on 10 tests, has increased to 79%. And that's up from 66% in 2006. Another really great achievement is that CMS is one of the few urban-suburban districts in our nation that continues to close the achievement gap year after year after year. The achievement gap means the gap in test scores between our African American students, our white students, and our Latino students. Another reason to celebrate is the graduation rate. It rose to 70%. And while that may not sound like much, it grew from 66% back in 2009, so it continues to improve as well. Who funds CMS? It's important to know that 55.2% of all the dollars that come to CMS come from the state of North Carolina, and that Mecklenburg County accounts for 26.3%, the federal grants a little bit over 16.1%, and local funds are 2.4%. And that's how the budget pie is all divided. So it's pretty obvious that the majority of our money comes from the state. But what's causing this crisis? What's really causing the crisis is we're in the middle of a recession. And there's very slow recovery for state revenue. Taxes just aren't coming in. People aren't buying houses. They're not buying cars. Based upon the most recent information we have, the budget shortfall for the state of North Carolina is going to be around $3.7 billion. And I know that number floats around a little bit, but based upon the best case information, our state legislature is looking at a $3.7 billion shortfall. And as a result of that, state agencies, including our school district, have been asked to look at 5%, 10%, or even 15% cuts with their budgets. And there could also be county cuts. So our county is also looking to face cuts, but those aren't completely decided yet. One thing is for sure, though. The federal stimulus dollars, they're gone. So, that being said, for next year's budget, 2011-2012, federal funding is going to be down $15 million. That's a for sure. State funding could be down anywhere from $32 million to $95 million. County funding could be down anywhere from $15 million to $45 million. And when you consider that CMS needs an extra $15 million just to keep pace with all their costs, this is going to be tough. A 5% cut across the board, the total amount would be about $62 million. A 10% cut will be $93 million. And the worst case scenario, which is a 15% cut, would be about $125 million. Now, as a former principal, one of the things that mattered most to me was how much money I got per student. At the beginning of the school year, we add up all of our students, and that's called our ADM, our average daily membership. Once you figure out what your average daily membership is, the number of students in your school, you get a certain dollar amount per student. And I can tell you that in 2010 in CMS, that per pupil expenditure, the money that you get for each student, was $8,523. If we're down $100 million, which we think we may be down that much this year, that means next year, in 2011 and 12, that per pupil expenditure drops back to $7,263. Unfortunately, $7,263 takes us back to what we used to spend in 2001. Let's talk about some of the key factors in the budget plans that CMS is talking about. First of all, these cuts are being made with the least impact on the classroom first. The superintendent has a strategic plan. It's called Strategic Plan 2014. And that strategic plan is really what leads everything that we're trying to do in the district. However, the superintendent and his staff are prepared for the worst case funding scenario. And so that's the information that I'm sharing with you today is pretty close to what that worst case scenario is going to be. Requests to county funding and expenses, we talked about that just a moment ago. That's that $15 million. We think that that's not going to change. That $15 million is there. But what we're also looking at is establishing budget flexibility. The superintendent's strategic plan, effective teaching and leadership, data-driven performance management. Another factor is increasing the graduation rate. Now, we talked just a moment ago about the graduation rate as being a very important part of the strategic plan, and it is. And we currently have 70% of our students graduating on time. That means in the 9th grade, if you had 100 students and 4 years later you had 70 that graduated on time, that's a 70% graduation rate. Part of the superintendent's strategic plan has to do about teaching and learning through technology. Another is environmental stewardship. And last but not least is why we're talking to you, and that's parent and community connections. And this is where we need you, the specific proposed cuts. The superintendent is proposing that the central support and operations be cut about $21 million. Now that $21 million equals 206 positions. Another cut that's being proposed is in the area of academic services. That's going to be about $8.7 million, and that's another 102 positions. But the largest proposed cuts come from the schools, unfortunately, and that's $61 million, and that's 1,045 positions. That subtotal comes to about $91 million and 1,353 positions. The federal funding gap. Bright Beginnings is also slated to be considered for cuts, and that's at about $8.5 million. That's 154 positions, and also Midwood School to be relocated, which would have a savings of about $450,000, and that's 9 positions. So the total proposed budget cuts come to $100 million, and that is 1,516 positions. Why these decisions have been made early is because families need to make plans for next year. Teachers and administrators need to make plans for next year. So there's a timeline that our school district has to follow. Some of these early decisions are that schools closed. Back on November 9th, there was a vote to close some schools. That was November 9th, 2010. The school board recently voted about weighted student staffing to move it from 1.3 to 1.25. Another early decision, and one that I personally think has a very positive influence, is adding instructional time to our elementary school day. Now, this is going to make for a savings for transportation with our elementary school students, but it's also going to add 45 minutes to the instructional day. So what's next? Between now and April 2011, early budget decisions are moving forward. State budget estimates are being confirmed. CMS is confirming their sustained operations, their growth, the things that they really can't control. The Board of Education is going to have numerous budget sessions. CMS is going to have to finalize their budget recommendations, and then a final budget recommendation will come from the Board of Education, which will result in a May 10th vote when the new budget for 2011-2012 is approved. But we need to move ahead together. CMS has had a great run. We've had great gains in achievement. The achievement gap is closing between students of different races, and we need your help. We need you to stay informed. We need to make sure that you know what the correct facts are. I encourage you to visit the MeckEd website, www.mecked.org. We update this regularly. As anything changes, you'll make sure that you know what's going on. But we also need you to get involved. We need you to get involved in the schools, get involved in your local schools, be active in your PTA. There's another opportunity for you. It's called Step Up Charlotte. Their website is www.soulsofourteachers.org. There's another opportunity that you can get involved in called Get Real 2011, which is the Crossroads Charlotte initiative. There's also communities and schools where you can volunteer in a school. My message to you is you need to be involved. We need you to make your voice heard. We need you as the citizen of this community to speak up on behalf of public education. As we all know, public education is in everyone's best interest. Whether you have students in public schools, whether you have children in private schools, whether your kids are already out of school, or whether you don't even have any kids, it's in everyone's best interest that we have a strong public school system. The reality of this recession is that CMS has been forced to take some pretty significant cuts for the past 3 years. And the 2011-2012 budget is no exception. These cuts are brutal. We need you to get involved. Please take the time to get your neighbors, your friends, your relatives, to contact your school board members and tell them that you support more money for this year's budget. Talk to your county commissioners. The county commissioners are big decision makers. We know that they support public school, but they need to hear from you. And don't hesitate to contact our state legislators as well. It is critical that we contact all of these people and let them know that we support public education. Quality public education is in everyone's best interest. And the reality is these cuts have been brutal. They're tough. As a former teacher, as a former principal, we're continuing to ask our teachers to do more with less. We're asking our principals and our assistant principals to do more with less. We can't have a third year of these big cuts. Please get involved. Please do what needs to be done. Thanks.